ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another 1/3 scale JND Studios statue review video. Now today we are taking a look at Selina Kyle aka Catwoman from The Dark Knight Rises. And yeah, I'm pretty darn excited to get her out here. Now I got mine from Sugo Toys, a retailer based down here in my home country of Australia. I've popped the link down in the description below. While you're down there, why not hit that subscribe and bell notification icon, plus the join button for more info on Justin's Collection Plus, the channel membership. Slowly but surely, I am building out my Dark Knight trilogy display, and Catwoman was one right at the top of my list. And I'm glad I waited for JND. For those of you who don't know, JND do things slightly differently. In 1/3 scale, you'd expect polystone or resin, but not here. You've got silicone, real glass eyes, and proper rooted hair. We will be doing a bunch of close-ups throughout the course of the review, and I'm hoping you're going to see why the use of these materials in this scale are kind of a game changer. Before we continue, I did, just for a moment, want to take a brief pause and check out the certificate of authenticity as well as some of the smaller pieces. Now, the certificate itself is done in the usual JND style on a square glossy black acrylic plate. You've got Selina Kyle, Catwoman, the DC logo, as well as a real live handwritten edition number. I happen to have 781 of 800. Then down below you've got the main artist signature and the 3D artist. Now I really like how simple this is, and yeah, I'm probably going to wall mount this alongside the statue. Next up, she does come with a pistol, and yes, we will be popping this in her hand a little bit later. It's made of unpainted black plastic. Unfortunately, it's not metal, and I was kind of expecting it to be. You also can't remove the magazine, the hammer doesn't work, and you can't slide the top. It's one fixed static piece. There isn't any silver dry brushing on the surface and the edges, which I think would have been a really nice touch and relatively simple to do. Next up, you do get a broken Batman cowl that you can use in two ways. You can either have it sitting on the display base as some set dressing, some scenery if you will, or you can have her holding it. And don't worry, we will be trying out both options. It's cast in black plastic, and there is a ton of detail on the surface. There's pitting and cracking, and of course the bottom half of the mask has been completely torn away. It does feel relatively sturdy, and around the back you do have a divot, and that's where her thumb digs into, so she does hold it nice and securely. Lastly, you do get her goggles, and yeah, they look absolutely incredible. We will be popping these on her a little bit later, but for now, I did want to check them out separately first. Now the strap is a little bit more delicate. Friend of the channel and fellow collector Bob Dylan ended up breaking his, so when you're sliding these on, exercise a little bit of caution. Around the front there's a ton of texture for the carbon weave sections, some gold details, and yes, you can actually slide down the goggles. It's all fully functional. The goggles themselves are nice and translucent, cast in orange, and you do have some lights fully sculpted around the front. What we are going to do now though is get the statue itself out here and take a closer look. Starting off with the display base first, it turns out JND have a relatively consistent look. Their Arthur Fleck statue had almost the exact same bottom base, with the top detail section being of course different and bespoke to each statue. Now, keeping it so simple isn't necessarily a bad thing. I do like really detailed, intricate looking bases, and if you like that as well, then you might be a little bit underwhelmed. But keeping the base as basic as it is definitely helps you focus your attention squarely on Catwoman. Now the bottom section is a glossy black with the Dark Knight Rises logo around the front, and all of the texture and fake snow and detail work in terms of the paint applications it's all up on top. Now the Dark Knight logo is actually raised on the surface, it's not just sculpted in, and you do have that cracked bat symbol in the background. Because the base is all glossy black and so too is the logo, it is a little bit hard to see. But if you light the statue correctly and the shadows fall where they're supposed to, then yeah, you should be able to make it out in the display. Up top, you do have a ton of texture. It kind of looks like real concrete. There are multiple layers of paint. There's a base layer of grey. There are washes in the crevices. There are some lighter sand-colored pieces and some fake snow. I'm not exactly sure what they've used for this, but it looks incredibly realistic. Now, I would caution against touching this constantly, because some of those snow particles do tend to stick to your fingers. It's not like they're just falling off randomly in the display, but it is something to be aware of. Now, Catwoman herself does key into the display base with one foot, and the other has a magnet around the toe section, and it does hold her in place really nice and securely. If you'll recall earlier, I was a little bit disappointed that her gun wasn't made of metal, but her heels are metal. They're a nice shiny chrome with a serrated edge on the inside, and the bottom isn't too sharp, but it looks really, really good. I also like how the light bounces off it and it picks up the reflections. This is going to look awesome in the display. The rest of the boots do look like fabric, but they're not. They're all fully sculpted. There is wrinkling here, there's creasing, there's texture work. I have no words for how good and how realistic these boots look. And I guess the same thing can be said for the rest of the outfit. I thought this was mixed media. I had to touch it multiple times just to make sure, and no, it isn't, it's all sculpted. But JND are very clearly at the top of their game, not just when it comes to silicone and glass eyes and real hair, but sculpting as well. She is of course wearing a skin-tight bodysuit, so all of the musculature and detail that would normally be underneath is fully sculpted in, and I really like the way all of this looks. We will be discussing the pose when we zoom out a little bit later. Now she does have some options for her hands. You can go with the one holding the gun, which could be my personal favourite. I am curious which though is going to be yours. Now you do switch out the entire forearm to have her holding on to Batman's broken cowl. You simply slide this between her finger and her thumb. Then you can remove the goggles and have her holding onto them as well. You've got multiple different options for the display. Her left hand is just lightly resting on her belt buckle, which is also really well done. There's carbon fiber texture and some silver up on top. Working our way up, you do have a central zipper, which culminates in an actual separate zipper piece that you can move around. If you want it swinging to the left or the right, you can absolutely do that. It's not just fixed in a single position. Alright, I know what you're all here to see. It's that head sculpt. The one thing that JND absolutely had to nail here, and I'm pleased to report that in my opinion, yeah, I think they did. This is 100% Anne Hathaway. Now, when I first unboxed this, I was blown away. I expected a really good quality statue, but I had no idea it was going to be this good. I do feel like I have to address the controversy. Some people have said that the lips are a little bit too full. For me, I think they look perfectly fine. The red lipstick is a nice pop of color, they're super glossy. Yes, potentially they are a little bit on the bigger side, but if you stand back and look at the head sculpt as a whole, can you tell who this is? Yes, absolutely. Is it one of the best likenesses I've ever seen on a statue? Also, yes, absolutely. This is now one of my all-time favorite statues, just based on the head sculpt alone. Now, you do have multiple different options with the goggles, either up or down. And the cool part about the goggles is they can actually rotate like you saw earlier, and you can see her eyes, which are real glass eyes, poking through those translucent lenses. Or then again, if you want to showcase the head sculpt without any distractions whatsoever, remove the goggles and have her hold onto them, now you have an uninterrupted view of this masterpiece. The skin texture and the fact that because this is real super high quality silicone, it does have that subsurface scattering where the light hits it and it looks incredibly lifelike. Now for a quick side-by-side comparison, here we have my current Dark Knight Trilogy lineup consisting of Prime 1 Joker on the right, Queen Studios 3rd scale Batman in the middle, and now the brand new JND Catwoman. And oh yes, I love the way these three look standing together. Now they do sit at different heights. Catwoman is the shortest of the three, including her display base. Then we have Batman sitting nice and squarely in the middle. And lastly, the Joker, who is by far the tallest of the three. Prime 1 has done a really good job with the scale of Joker himself. But because the display base is absolutely massive, it is a showstopper. And an attention grabber, it means that, yeah, he's a little bit more elevated. But I'm not complaining, I still really like that statue. All three of these together, I think they complement each other very nicely. However, when the JND Batman comes out, we will of course redo this comparison. Just wrapping up on the JND Studios Catwoman from The Dark Knight Rises. I was excited going in, but Catwoman isn't really my favourite part of that movie. She's one of them. But I didn't know if I was going to love this statue. The base is pretty simple, so is the pose, but it comes together beautifully. You've got multiple different display options, which I'm showcasing as I'm wrapping up here, plus the pose is sensual, and it's also from a side angle. You can adjust the statue left and right, you can rotate her on the display base if you want her facing a different direction, and with the eyes off to one side, it's something a little bit different. Usually with JND, the eyes are looking dead forward or slightly up, and the pose is straight up and down. I'm looking at Heath Ledger Joker, Christian Bale's Batman, Robert Pattinson's Batman, and Arthur Fleck. This brings something entirely new to the table, and I am all for it. Now the base she's standing on is pretty basic, but I'm not mad at that. I still really like the way it looks. There's a ton of texture, it's beautifully painted, the Dark Knight Rises logo is subtle, but it's definitely there. Then of course we've got the snow up on top that sets the scene beautifully. As for Catwoman herself, the suit looks like fabric, but it's not. It's fully sculpted and textured to the nines. When you get this in hand, you're probably going to think it's fabric. You'll have to touch it to see that it isn't. Plus, the icing on the cake, that incredible head sculpt. The likeness to Anne Hathaway is absolutely there. I love the expression, it's stoic, but also kind of playful at the same time. This, for me, is an absolute home run for JND. And yeah, I'm even more excited now after reviewing this statue to get my Harley Quinn, hopefully relatively soon. Now I got mine from Sugo Toys, like I said earlier. They're an Australian-based business, and I have popped the link in the description below. I also have to say a massive thank you to my buddy Slam Collections on Insta, link is also in the description. He does amazing work. He came over and helped me film this review. While you are down in the description, why not hit that subscribe and bell notification icon, plus the join button for more info on Justin's Collection plus the channel membership, if you like the sound of seeing your name in the end credits of my reviews. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you in the next video.